And new tonight, the suspect was in court today in San Mateo County.
ABC 10's Monica Coleman is live in the studio right now with what happened in court.
Good evening. The last time we saw the 67-year-old suspect, he was being tackled to the ground by law enforcement when he was found at the sheriff's substation after he was accused of shooting and killing 7 people. Today we saw him for the first time in court. Take a look at this video. Wearing an orange jumpsuit, the suspect kept his head down most of the time. He was then before the judge. Not wanting to show his face to reporters, he hid behind a yellow piece of paper for the majority, if not all, of the court hearing. While in the Half Moon Bay, I spoke with Mayor of San Mateo. That city is just miles away from where the shooting happened. She had been meeting with survivors and victims' families. The mayor says many of them are now being relocated and can't return to their homes. She went on to say, if mental health services were more readily available for the AAPI community, the shooting could have been avoided.
Massive job loss in the Asian community, isolation during the pandemic, and then a real gap in culturally competent and linguistically appropriate services for Asian community members. And in addition to a sharp increase in gun ownership. So to think that this is going to be the first and the last in San Mateo County, I think is really underestimating the severity of the problem that we have to address.
It's important to know all the victims of the Half Moon Bay mass shooting are farm workers who work and live on the farmland. Many of them are immigrants with language barriers to resources. The governor did plan to support the city and the county with resources and hotel rooms for the victims of the shooting. But there is still a long road of recovery for those impacted.
And Monica, here's the deal. I know you were actually in Monterey Bay covering that shooting over the weekend. Then days later found yourself in Half Moon Bay covering yet another shooting. So you've had a chance to speak to both of those victims in these tragedies.
That's right. Unfortunately, I was spread across the state to cover these mass shootings. And I say unfortunately because this is awful, devastating that we had 2 back-to-back mass shootings and very quite bizarre. And I want to start with Monterey Park. 65% of the people that live there identify as AAPI. So this is a very close-knit community. But when I arrived into town, you could feel the sorrow. It was so sad, and you can feel that they're trying to heal, but not knowing where to start. And it's very bizarre as well because the suspect, that shooting happened at 10:22 Saturday night. He was on the run for hours here, and he wasn't found dead in his van until Sunday afternoon. So it was a long time that the city was in this panic and fear of this gunman on the loose.
And then we saw in Half Moon Bay, that suspect actually drove to the sheriff's office and was there in the substation and was taken into custody.
That was bizarre as well.
So many questions around these cases. And then according to the Gun Violence Archive, we've now had more shootings at this same point than at any time in history.
Right. This is the 5th mass killing in the U.S. this month. So it's just so devastating for not just California, but across the state. And Governor Gavin Newsom was in Half Moon Bay yesterday. I got to talk with him. And we asked him, with California having some of the strictest gun laws in the country, how do we see 2 back-to-back mass shootings? And he did say that gun safety works, but we need the help of the federal government so that people can't go across state lines to go buy a gun, but also make it harder to find one even here in California.
Our Monica Coleman reporting on this very heartbreaking topic. Of course, stay with ABC 10 for updates on air and online at abc10.com.